2, 1.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. We're back, baby. I'm your host, Objectively Dan, and joining me after my 2-week-long hiatus is Jenna Belk.
Hello.
Live in the studio. Jenna, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are
Awesome.
you?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, Jenna, you've been making the rounds around here at the Atheist Community of Austin. You've been on a couple different programs now, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself kind of as to who you are, because you kind of just showed up on the screen one day for people, and then you just kept on going, so yeah.
Yeah, I was recently deconverted from Catholicism.
And how recent is that?
11 months.
11 months. It's 11 months, and you're already, I mean, you've been on Atheist Experience.
Yeah.
You were on Talk Heathen, too, I believe. I mean, you've just been on our shows here and stuff. So, like, what's up with that? Like, when I was 11 months into my kind of deconversion, I was not nearly doing as much as you were. So, yeah, tell us about that. What's up?
Around the time that I got deconverted was because I had a craving to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I was learning was inspiring me to want to be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And so right after I deconverted, I found out that there was a community here and I could start volunteering. And so I decided January 1st as my New Year's resolution to start volunteering here. So
Nice. And volunteering here, you've call screened for my show before.
Yeah.
You've call screened for tons of the other shows here. So yeah, Jenna's been around the block, and now she's making appearances on shows. And you're trying to start your own podcast now too. Is that right?
I have started my own
Yeah,
podcast.
tell-
It's called Atheist is the name of the show, but it's on my channel, Jenna Belk. So
Yes.
if you search my name, Jenna Belk, for the first episode, you can't search it by the first name. I don't know why, but shouldn't be a problem going forward. But I should have. I'm working on my second episode pretty soon.
What is the podcast about? What do you talk about?
So it's about the fact that I have deconverted so recently, and I've been guesting on these shows and learning from these shows, and I realized that I have a lot to learn, and so I thought that I could use the podcast to learn with an audience and have kind of expose myself and be a possible guide for people that might be going through the same thing now or in the future. I don't know. Just
Yeah. What kind of guide do you want to be? When you say guide, like what does that mean?
When you lose your religion, you lose a lot, and it's impactful. And unless you've done it, unless you've done it, you can't know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And so when you feel that loss of a path, then I realize that it might be helpful if I tell you what I started to readdress and learn how to do. And so my first podcast was about skepticism and humanism. What do I believe in, essentially?
Yeah, right.
Now, and how did I used to look at things, and how do I look at things now? And so I've got an episode coming up on street epistemology with you.
Yes.
And I've talked to Anthony Magnabosco, and I'm going to do one with him where we're going to go out and do some SE, and then we're going to come back and reevaluate it.
Very cool. Very cool.
I've got Dave Warnock lined up. We're going to talk about how he looks at death, and I look at death differently too now, because there's no heaven and hell and all that. So some interesting things that I'm having to re-look at.
Yeah. I mean, you've like the turnaround on this as far as like officially the day you said like, oh, I'm leaving the faith too. Yeah, now I'm making content like all over the place. I mean, that's exciting, but also like, I remember when I was first starting to get into it, I realized I still needed time for myself to process kind of the changes that I went through. Now, part of it was, I knew Anthony. So I already knew a lot of people who were producing this kind of media and stuff. So I was already kind of interested in that. But like, what has it been like to like just kind of jump into things head first? Because most people, it takes time to kind of ease themselves into it. But I feel like you're just hitting the ground running.
It's funny you should ask, because I've been struggling actually because I enjoy doing all this stuff, and I have fun with it, and I love doing new things, and I learn something new every time I do it, and I want to help most of all. But I do have a lot to process, and so I do need to kind of slow down just a little bit, because I do need to take time to myself and, kind of regroup, because I'm learning a whole new life in addition to a whole new world of podcasts and, other things. So
isn't that interesting? Because your worldview changed, so your lifestyle changed.
Immediately.
Your friends changed.
Yeah.
Your relationship to your family has changed. I mean, like, everything has changed after all that. And I was hoping you could talk just a little bit, just talk about your deconversion story in particular and kind of some of the effects of that, because we've kind of discussed this, off mic before. And
deconversion before or after?
Yeah, well, just like so you mentioned earlier, when a deconversion happens, at least in your experience, there was a loss there.
Yeah.
To some degree. And I wanted you maybe to just kind of divulge on that a little bit. Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, when you think about, when you're a kid and you're growing up and what you're going to be when you grow up and how you're going to live your life, I always thought it was, I'm going to get to heaven. I'm going to be a mom, and I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to get to heaven. And when I realized that, I really don't think that there is a heaven, I really don't think there's a God, well, then what? So it was like, okay, well, I thought it was a cool thing, because now that just meant that the life that I have, the days that I do have, are just that much more valuable and that much more precious. And I now feel a little bit more pressure to not waste time.
I'm glad you thought it was a cool thing, because I thought it was
I do
terrifying.
think it's a cool thing.
I think it's cool now. I definitely
Yeah.
was super, super scared at first.
Well, it might be because I have an opportunity to listen to really positive people, their perspective. And so that's possibly influenced my perspective on it.
Sure. So, yeah, you've been recently deconverted, doing the atheist media stuff, and also, and just pointing out, as many people point out, you are a woman in the atheist movement, and that has ramifications. And I've seen that. I've even seen the comments when people are, commenting live on some AXP and stuff. Objectively speaking, right? I think it's harder to be a woman and an atheist in this country than it is to be a man and an atheist. I think women have it harder because, one, there's more men atheists out there than there are women. So, like, I have more people I could talk to about this stuff that express the same gender identity as I do. But also, expressing that to people, there are some people who think that atheism is some sort of deviancy. And so, when you combine that with the fact that you're a woman, I feel like that effect just kind of compounds itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's specific Christian myths in particular about women who are, like, harlots, or women who are, like, trying to seduce men like, the dark side, you know what I mean? I was hoping you could explain, like, maybe what that's like a little bit and your experience as a woman talking about these issues, because I know it's got to be different from my experience with that.
I don't know. I mean, I can't say that it is different because, the comments are interesting, but I've gotten comments like that for my whole life. I've been a waitress in several different kinds of environments, so I've gotten those comments.
Yeah.
My whole life.
So you don't think it's much different? Like, you don't think our experiences with talking about this stuff is different in that regard?
So far, no.
Okay, that's
But
interesting.
I have been taking this kind of slow. I've only been on about a dozen or so.
That's true.
Shows.
That's true.
So I haven't been that exposed. So give it time.
Well, because I've talked to other women who've been on this show before, and I would say that they've definitely been able to tell me some stories. And I've seen some screenshots that some people have gotten as far as the conversations and messages that they get.
Well,
and,
so the messages, I get plenty of messages.
Okay, so there you go. Okay. See, I don't get messages like that. People don't like me like that, apparently. So I get some. Well, that's not true. I get some comments here and there about.
They don't affect me.
Yeah.
They really don't. Maybe
That's
they
good.
should.
But. Well, no, I don't. I'm glad that you have a positive experience with that so far, actually. That's kind of refreshing. Maybe that means that it's better than it was maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, But,
I think maybe it is. But when I find out that there's a lot of negativity somewhere, I just don't really go there very often. So,
you're just a positive person in general.
I try to be.
Cool. Well, folks, this is a live call-in show. In case you're listening to this at home, this is Truth Wanted. This is a show where we talk about what we believe and why, with special guests every single week and callers from all over the place. So if you haven't already, go ahead and get the number on the screen there. Come call us. Come talk to us. Come ask Jenna your questions. Ask me your questions, and we'd be happy to talk. I see we got at least 1 or 2 calls here on the line here, but I do want to keep having this conversation here because you've told me bits and pieces about your story with your family so far and like how they've been handling your deconversion, and I was wondering if you're able to express that today, or like what you feel comfortable enough to talk about as far as like how you've adapted since then, because I know I've talked about my family and how I've kind of adapted with those situations, and I was wondering if maybe there were some loose ends there or ties that we could share in those experiences.
So I've experienced a lot of ostracization. There's a lot of people that don't talk to me anymore.
Really?
Some people that last thing that they said to me was, I don't even know who you are anymore.
Wow.
One person, last thing that they said to me was, I was trying to have a conversation with them, and they kept talking while I was talking, and I stopped and I was like, are you even listening to me? And this person said, no. And I said, I mean, if we can't have this respect enough to have a conversation and listen to each other, then why are we talking? Like, are you going to listen to me? And this person said, no, I don't respect you.
Wow. Just because you're an atheist?
Yeah. This person had just gone on a retreat.
Okay. Yeah.
So they came back all fresh.
They were loaded with the word.
They said that
they wanted to spread it.
They said that they look at a cross and that's love. And I was like, I don't see that. And they said, okay, well, I don't think you know what love is.
Wow.
I said,
wow. Yeah.
So they don't think that I don't know. I mean, that's what they said. So I don't know what they think.
Yeah, they don't think you're not worthy.
I don't want to put words in their mouths, but that's what they said. So
yeah, you're not worthy enough of their respect for you to even give your opinion about something.
Right. They said that they couldn't learn anything from me, so why would they listen to me?
Right, because you don't have the truth, right?
You
don't have the truth in your heart, or you don't have the Holy Spirit.
I don't know God.
You don't know God. Yeah, no, that's unfortunately too relatable. And I think a lot of people experience that because I think we're taught, and obviously your mileage is going to vary depending on what kind of church you grew up with, what kind of community you're from, but there is a narrative out there that says, hey, these people that aren't Christians, these people that don't believe the same way you do, they're not worth your time, and you shouldn't even be associating with them because they're just full of lies, they're trying to trick you, and they don't have the truth in them.
I've done this enough times that I've kind of gotten it down to this point where it's like, okay, there's a point in the relationship where I'm going to stop and ask you, do you respect me enough to have a conversation? Can we start there?
Yeah. Because you can be right about something all day.
Right.
You can be the most correct person in the world, but if I don't respect you enough to even care about what you have to say,
then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't even matter. There's no point in having the conversation. I think that's a problem I see a lot of other atheists have when they don't even realize the person they talk to doesn't value even their opinion enough to even learn anything from it.
No, they have something to say, and so they don't care what you have to say.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm willing to listen to you, but are you willing to listen to me? That's the thing is.
Yeah, and then that agitates us, and then that's where that tension happens, and then that's why people are uncomfortable even having these conversations in the first place, right?
Right.
Because people get really they don't want to step on people's toes. They just want to be friends and move on. And that's why politics and religion is like the two things you don't talk about at Thanksgiving dinner, even though it comes up anyway.
Well, right? The thing is, they say in restaurants, they say don't talk about it in restaurants or bars. And it's like they say, just don't talk about religion and politics. And I'm like, but if you can't talk about it, then how are you going to fix it?
See, I'm pretty sure whenever the ACA or anybody from the ACA goes out to a bar, that's all they talk about is religion and politics, right? Like
I'm sure the surrounding tables.
Yeah, like multiple tables. Like we'll start the biggest fights with people, and not other people, but like amongst ourselves. But like there's a difference when people around here do it because like they really enjoy it. Like that's their thing. You know what I mean?
I will say that there are times when I go out to restaurants and I'm having a conversation like this, just at a normal volume, and I notice people start shifting in their seats and start like looking at me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to talk about what I do
Yeah.
with most people.
It
It's
is.
like, oh, you're part of it. What? Like, what does that even mean? Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And plus, it's when I would call us activists in some regard, right?
Totally.
When you're activists like us, then you just take things to a whole other level because
We got the passion.
You got the passion in there, and also like. That's off-putting for a lot of people, and I totally understand why. So like for me, I always dial it down when I'm talking to people.
But when you talk about somebody that's in a new band
yeah,
and they want to talk to you about their band, you let them talk about their damn band.
that's true. You're
like,
right.
Why not?
Yeah, you're right.
They're passionate about something. It's cool to learn something about from the perspective of somebody who is passionate about something.
Because they don't want you to be passionate about worshiping the devil, Jenna.
Oh my God.
You know, that's what it is. I mean, like it's a combination of misinformation, a combination of worry. I legitimately think it's worry and fear for other people. It's certainly what it was for my family, and just lacking the background knowledge and communication skills to effectively have a conversation where information is going to be conveyed and movement actually happens. Somebody actually changes their mind, or somebody actually at least considers the things in front of them. Right?
I think a lot of them haven't been exposed to that kind of conversation. Because when I think about my family, and the people that they converse with on a daily basis, it's people like them.
Yeah.
And they're not exposed to, like the way that we have conversations now, you won't hear that at my Thanksgiving table.
No, you won't. You won't hear it at mine either. I mean, that's like the next step. Like, this is the project that I'm interested in, right? It's like, how do we bring that to the table? And how do we do that where we're not hurting people, where we're not offending people, where we're just expressing a right to exist and expressing a right to express our beliefs, but also to actually have an effective dialogue with someone. I'm not necessarily interested in someone coming to the exact same conclusions I am at the end of the day. I am interested if somebody's listening, if somebody is looking out for other ideas and other conclusions, because they're out there. I will not go to my grave with the beliefs I hold today.
Right.
I hope I don't anyway, right? Like, I
Same.
hope I change my mind on things as I continue to do every day. But that's also just not an ethic that a lot of people have. It's just not something that's developed. I know it was
they want
something
to stay the same.
Yeah, it's something I had to develop for sure. Like, it wasn't something I was born with. So, and I think that's what the case is for most people.
Yeah.
But this is a call-in show, so I think we should go ahead and start talking to people who are waiting in line to talk to us. What do you think, Jenna?
All right.
All right, let's do this. I want to go to Zero in San Francisco. Hey, Zero, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, Zero, how can we help you out today?
Well, I'm a first-time caller, and I've been listening to, I haven't exactly been listening to the show. I watch a lot of YouTube clips.
Okay, that's fair. Look, I call that watching the show. I'll take it, man. What's up?
First of all, I just wanted to say I really, really enjoy it.
Thank you.
I love listening to you guys talk.
Awesome.
Yeah, look, anybody who makes shows around here, that's what they want to hear. We definitely want to make content that people actually enjoy listening to, right? So that's good.
So, I guess the main reason why I called is because just to give a little bit of shout out and support for the community of, when it comes to being atheist or agnostic, we seem to get confused for the two, like a lot. A lot of people that are atheists don't like to talk to agnostics, and a lot of agnostics really don't like to be confused as an atheist. But honestly, I like talking to atheists.
Zero, what would you call yourself?
Agnostic.
Okay. So what do you believe the difference is between an agnostic and an atheist?
So, and this is just this conjecture on my part.
Sure.
From my understanding, when you're atheist, you have no belief or faith in God, or that one exists. Close?
I'd say a lack of belief. I prefer the lack of belief definition. I know some people have contentions with that, but for my purposes and explanation, I think it serves as a decent definition. Would you say that's what you use too, Jenna?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, so like a lack of belief in any gods. Yeah.
Okay. So as an agnostic, my belief is that I don't know. I don't know anybody that could possibly know. And so, therefore, to have a concrete or finite answer like there is a God or there is not a God is foolish from either end.
Mm-hmm. Zero, do you believe that someone can be an atheist and an agnostic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Because a lack of faith doesn't necessarily mean that you don't believe. It just means that you don't have faith in this.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
And so when it comes to belief and it comes to faith and it comes to God, we have to understand that these are all superfluous.
Wait, what's the difference between belief and faith?
That's a great question.
So faith comes from absolutely no knowledge. You know nothing about the subject. You have nothing but what you were told, and you have to take faith that this is correct.
Okay.
When you believe something, you've been taught, you have some knowledge, you have some experience, and so you believe this way.
Okay. So yeah, I might not use those words in those exact ways, but as long as I understand the framework that you're coming from, I can understand where you're getting at.
Okay. And so I don't do a lot based on faith. I just don't. I always look before I leap. I always make sure that there's no one hiding behind the door before I swing it open. You know, you can't just go on faith that you're not going to smash someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I would say I do the same thing. I would hope to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with the teaching that I have and a lot of the learning that I've been given, my understanding is that your belief is not necessary. It doesn't change the fact.
Sure. Okay.
and so
I like that actually.
Right? And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter whether or not we believe in God. Either there is one or there is not one, and that is just the way it is.
Sure. I would say though that when I use the word atheist, I'm just using it as a description of my beliefs. Do I have a God belief? Yes or no? And it just answers that question. And there are some people, Zero, that would say that you can combine the terms atheist, agnostic. In fact, I would call myself an agnostic atheist in the sense that not only do I not believe that there is a God, but I said do not believe there's a God. The philosophers that are watching this will crucify me if I say that. What I mean to say is I lack a God belief. And there's a difference why people say that, because if I say I believe there's no God, then there's a knowledge claim being made there. And that's where the agnostic part comes in, right? I don't know for certain whether or not there is a God, but my belief, I basically live in the world as if there is none. I don't recognize one, right? There's no God. I don't claim to have knowledge of a God or anything like that. So agnostic atheist seems to be a term that's useful for me. Now, again, there's contention about this a lot. You see debates about this all the time about how people use these words exactly. I'm fine with it, even if it doesn't. There may be some technicalities here and there, but if we're just talking about basic descriptions of belief, I find that that's useful for me. What do you think, Jenna?
Zero, do you think that there could be any benefit from adding the word atheist to your description of yourself?
So here's why I say no. Because honestly, my other favorite thing to watch is Bill Maher.
Okay.
Okay.
And he's a full-on atheist, and he's always got this bone to pick with agnostics because he says that we straddle the fence. Pick one. And honestly, I can't. There's the world of faith, there's the world of belief, and then there's reality. And I live in reality, but I want to believe. You know what I mean?
Why do they have to be separate?
I never understood that myself. But
do they have to be separate?
Absolutely not. I think there are shades of gray to everything. I believe that there are even people that are Gnostic that probably doubt sometimes, probably have heavy doubt.
Doubt what?
Their own belief.
Yeah.
I mean, you know?
Well, yeah. So, I don't think, again, like, just to reiterate, I don't think the terms are necessarily mutually exclusive to each other. Maybe that's a belief you might have. But when it was explained to me that these two terms could be used to describe my sense of belief about things, I was perfectly accepted of it. So, like, in my mind, when someone tells me, oh, I'm an agnostic, all that really means to me is I don't have a commitment one way or another to a particular God belief. Now, there's exceptions to those rules. I've definitely met people who are agnostic Christians, who are agnostic Buddhists, who kind of use that label to describe their strength towards their beliefs, but still, with the acknowledgement that some of those beliefs still do exist. But a pure agnostic, someone who just says, yeah, I'm just agnostic, to me, that just means atheist most of the time. And I've yet to see really too much of an exception to that rule. But
I was.
It's again, it all just comes down to how you define those words. And like,
totally, it depends on the person.
Yeah, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is very famous for this, calling himself an agnostic and not really an atheist. And people are like, but you're an atheist though. Like, as long as people are finding words to express themselves, and their beliefs or lack thereof, I'm fine. Now, I do take on the word atheist because there's political charge to that word that I like to kind of utilize a little bit. I think it's a little spicier than agnostic in most cases, right?
Yeah.
Well, well, you used the term just now that, and honestly, it's not a huge problem that I have. But when it comes to, faith and belief in religion, there's a huge difference between all of these and a spiritual path, and that's where and yes, I have practiced as Buddhist, and actually when my teacher started out with me, we actually walked the Mudhai Nika path, and so what we have to understand about Buddhism is it's not a religion. So people do use it as a religion, but it's a philosophy. It's a way of living. It's a way of life. It's not. We don't worship God in Buddhism.
Oh, okay.
So would you call yourself a Buddhist? Is that a label you would use for yourself?
So at the moment we're walking a Shaivite path, and so
What?
Oh, 1 second.
Okay.
A little curious all the way through. So this is the final leg of the journey, I guess. And so we are now a Gori, and my teacher is Sadhu, and I am his Chela, which is basically, long and short of it, avatar of Godhead on earth and his student. And I know that sounds like it's taking a specific stance on religion and faith and belief, but what you have to understand about worship and why Buddhists don't do it is because we have aspiration to, we have admiration for, we have reverence for, but to worship or to pray to something gives away our personal everything, our personal belief, our personal, responsibility, this has always been my problem with anybody that heavily calls themselves Christian. You've got this individual, right, that does something.
So Zero, we're getting some pretty bad feedback on your end. I'm not sure if you're walking still or if something's going on, but if you could get to a place where it's a little bit
I was
quieter.
using a set of headphones. Is this better?
Yes, that's a bit better, I think. Yeah.
Sorry. So, when somebody does something bad and somebody who's Christian sees it, they tell you you've got the devil in you or you've got a demon on you. Mm-hmm. And when you do something good, ooh, you've got the light of God within you, or ooh, you got an angel on your shoulder.
Sure.
I find that pretty insulting. I make my own bad decisions or my own good decisions.
Yeah.
I didn't have the devil telling me to, and I didn't have God taking responsibility for me either. When we give when we give everything over to God, we divorce ourselves from all responsibility for any action or any thought that we have after that.
I'd say that's...
Because what's the one thing...
Yeah.
What's the one thing they say about homosexuality? I don't hate homosexuals. God does.
Yeah. or they love the sin or hate the sin. You know, there's all kinds of ways of putting that out there. But yeah, okay, I get you. I think we're kind of went on a tangent to what we originally were going down, but I do appreciate your observations nonetheless, Zero. What I want to get out of this conversation, I guess, is I want to go back just a little bit to the agnostic atheist conversation. You describe yourself as an agnostic. I would describe myself as an agnostic atheist. What would you say is the difference between your beliefs or lack thereof and my beliefs of lack thereof?
Well, and this is a huge circle back around to the main topic. When it comes to God, we forget that God is not a whole entity. God is not a person. When we use the word God, it's a title. And so when we use this title, there's a name associated with this title. You know, just like Satan is not a person. That also is a title. It's short for Hashatan, or the opposite, the opposer, or whatever.
Sure.
So in the Agor tradition, and in a lot of the traditions along this path, you have you've done some theology study, correct?
I mean, as much as the next person at the ACA has, yeah, like,
I've watched philosophy videos.
I've read a book or two in this library here, but yeah.
So one of the concepts that comes up a lot in the Agor tradition is the thought of the oversoul. Have you heard this?
No, but I'll be honest. I am still interested in my last question, and I'm not sure it really got answered as far as what the difference is between what you would call yourself as an agnostic and what I would call myself as an agnostic atheist.
Whoever's saying it.
Whoever's saying it.
I possibly could agree with you and call myself an agnostic atheist, because at the moment I don't have any evidence for God, so I can't tell you there is one. But I also don't have any evidence against God, so I can't be a full-on atheist and say that, you know.
Can you have evidence against?
Yeah, I would be interested to see what that would look like.
I know, right?
Yeah, but if you don't have a God belief, you know, and I understand that the hesitation, because it sounds like you don't want to make the claim that there is no God, or, you know, if we're using God as a title here, right? There is no supreme deity or however you want to define that. But if you also don't, I mean, in your heart of hearts, if we're talking about how we actively live our lives in the day to day, I don't have a reason to believe in a God, or at least any human conception of God that's come forward so far. So it doesn't make sense for me to just say, oh, but there maybe could be something out there, maybe I don't know, and so I'll just call myself agnostic. It's like, well, just I don't know. Like, maybe you disagree with me on that, but that's where atheist becomes just the label for me, where it's like, yeah, I live my life as though there is no God. Mm-hmm. Because I don't have a God belief. There's no reason for me to live like there is one.
Well, you know, Nietzsche says that God is dead.
Well, Nietzsche said God is dead because that was more of a political statement about, you know, the modernity and other kinds of things. Not really what most people say that statement's about, but...
Well, but do you say the same thing about Bigfoot? But there might be a Bigfoot. There might be a Bigfoot.
That's true. Would you say you're agnostic about Bigfoot? I mean... You know,
I would say that I am in doubt of Bigfoot because of two things. One, he always seems to be caught in grainy, out-of-shot areas. And two, the person that first photographed Bigfoot on his deathbed admitted that he had faked the photos.
There you go. But, you know, just because someone had some fake ideas about Bigfoot doesn't mean Bigfoot's still out there, Zero. You know, you can't just say, I'm just messing with you. But that's what people would do with the God stuff, right? They'd be like, oh, well, just... You know, you could talk about this Christian said something and it was wrong, and this person said something.
Oh, absolutely.
You know. But
once again, like I said, you know, it goes back to the personal beliefs about God and what God is. If you believe that God is a single entity, a man floating in a cloud, then it's very, very hard for me to say that yes, you're correct. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, since I don't have evidence against it, I can't say that no, you're not correct. But you know, that's.
But I would refine this belief a little bit, though, Zero, because I do believe that people can make specific claims about a God or specific claims about their religion that we can definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, at least through what can be proven as much as we can through the methods of science, right? Like if I claim right now that God is giving me the power to heal Jenna right now, and I'm going to heal Jenna of all her illnesses, and she's just going to be super wonderful after this. And then I try to lay my hands down, and we do the whole, I get in caboodle, I start speaking in tongues, and nothing happens, then we can say that either I did something wrong, or maybe the whole thing is just BS, you know?
The placebo effect.
Yeah,
this is my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to God and religion. So,
for me, God used to be the universe. Before I could bring myself to calling myself an atheist, I was like, well, God's just the universe, man.
Yeah, and I would give most Christians.
But when I look back, though, it's like, why go that far? Why say that God's the universe? Why not just say the universe is the universe?
Right.
Like, why do I have to name it something else?
For sure, I would give most Christians the benefit of the doubt.
That might be a good explanation.
You know, if we're talking about modern Christianity, I'm giving most Christians the benefit of the doubt that they're not talking about some guy in the clouds. That they are talking about something.
Well, but for me, it was like a transition. Like when I started out, it was a big man in the sky holding the world in his hands, you know, and then it was like this evil dictator. And then it was like, you know what? I don't want to think that God's that way because God wouldn't be that way. And so it's something else. And I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I went on my own path. And then I was like, you know what? God's energy, God's what is it? And then I was like, but why name it anything? If I don't even know what it is. And
yeah. Where's the agency there and a lot of that, right? And I definitely discovered, oh, wow, my God belief is probably not what these people who wrote these books that I'm reading believe.
Right. And
also,
it's so open for interpretation.
I don't think the part of the book that these people lived in believe in the same God that the part of the book that these people live in. Like the Bible is that old enough to where you can see the transitions and changes in the beliefs in their God. So anyway, this was kind of a long tangent of all kinds of wavering and wavering. I hope we kind of sort of got to what you wanted to talk about, Zero. I do have a full line of people who want to talk to us tonight. Did you have any last comments you wanted to make before we go ahead and go to our next caller? Hello, Zero. Are you there?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Any final comments you want to make before we kind of wrap it up here?
I do. So my teacher and I, when we first started out, and people would ask us why we could believe these things or how we could believe in this God or we could live by these traditions and why we talk to the people that we do and allow them around us. There's one simple question that we ask them and we, encourage people to think about and ponder, the next time you have any doubt. And that is, who is God today?
Who is God today? Well, to me, I don't believe in God.
Yeah.
So it's not really anything.
I guess the long and the short of it is when you see somebody that's crazy and babbling and talking to themselves in the street, are they really crazy? Are they really babbling to themselves? Or is it possible that there is someone there that you just can't see?
Or they are on drugs, or they need help, or they need a doctor, I wouldn't assume that there's a God there.
Completely likely. But like I said, how do we know? How do we know unless we have the knowledge and the understanding to actually help that person or counsel them? And I'm not saying now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not believing in demon possession and these people are touched by the hand of God. Some of them are actually on drugs. But like I said, it's just something to think about. When we think about God, what is it that we're thinking about? Are we thinking about?
Here's the thing, though, Zero. And I just want to push back on this. And I know we said we're going to wrap this up, but I know for a fact that people get on drugs and mess their brains up. That's a demonstrable thing I've seen. I've never actually seen someone.
As a monk out here on these streets, I have watched people go from coherent, kind, caring to these weird creatures.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah,
it's sad and it's disturbing because everybody's looking for something to.
Yeah,
everybody's looking for something to fill that void. Everybody wants there to be something more out there.
So mental illness is definitely a thing to consider here too, right? But my point in saying this, Zero, is I've seen evidence of these physical explanations for things. I've seen evidence of drugs. I've seen evidence of mental illness affecting things. I haven't seen a confirmed case of someone being touched by the hand of God. I've definitely heard people claim, but if we're just talking about maybes and I don't know, could be's, and we're not talking about how we could know even for sure because we have these confounding variables, then there's no reason for me to believe in this thing that's less likely than the thing that's more likely. unless I have, unless I want to, right? Unless there's a hope there that just, but this was a interesting conversation, Zero. Thanks for being the first time caller. And I hope you get to call in again so we could talk more about some of that Buddhism stuff, because you want to get on something there, and I wish we had more time for it, but I wish you luck. And thanks again for calling. Really do appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Zero.
Really interesting. We kind of went all over the place a little bit there. So
yeah, I don't know if he was agnostic or an atheist or a Buddhist.
Right, because he was talking about his teacher. Yeah, I don't know. Now, of course, you could be a Buddhist to be an athist. Right. And I think maybe that's kind of where he's at, but I don't know for sure.
I don't know.
We kind of lost the train of thought there a little bit. But
maybe he'll call back and we'll talk about it more.
Maybe we'll call back, and we definitely have lots of calls to go through. But it is interesting because we're essentially, I think, if you took me and Zero's brain apart and when we look at God, we probably think of God as the same thing.
I think so.
But
he's just not there yet.
Well, it's just a language thing, right? And I think that's what stopped me, because if you go look at my video of when I was a Christian and I said I thought what an atheist was, I don't agree with that definition at all. I think it's a stupid definition. And I don't think most atheists even use that definition of what that is. I said like something like atheism is a belief in science or something like that. It's something just crazy and doesn't have anything to do with. I probably
would have said that atheism is a hatred for God.
Oh, see, there you go.
That was my interpretation of it, because that was pretty intentional.
Right, because you have to have an opinion about the Christian God, right? It's crazy. But anyway, some stuff to think about. I do want to go to our next call, though. Yeah. Let's go to, I think this is Komal. Please excuse me if that is not the pronunciation. Komal from Alabama. What is up?
It's pronounced Kamal.
Hi, Kamal.
What is up, my friend?
Dan, what's happening? How y'all doing?
Doing
pretty
all
good.
right. What did you want to talk about today?
Jenna, am I saying your name right, Jenna?
Mm-hmm.
I am so sorry that I was listening to the beginning of the show, and it's the same thing I went through when I came out to my family, and I was telling them, and it was at Thanksgiving dinner, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
It blew my mind. And it wasn't like at the table or anything. It just, me and my brother was talking, and that's how, I never told Eric and V how it happened, how my family turned on me. It was during dinner, and about this past Thanksgiving dinner. And I didn't even get invited to dinner. My aunt, I was in the Marine Corps, and I did 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. And I don't have to, I'm sure you guys know what goes on in war. And my aunt called me a demon and a murderer. And that's why I don't believe in God and all these different things. And she didn't talk to me. I tried to explain to her some of the things because I don't normally talk about what I've been through in my tours. I don't normally talk about them. But I'll tell you something. Eric, listening to Eric a few shows back, he convinced me to get a therapist, and he doesn't even know that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
He convinced me that he convinced something he was talking about a while back in a show, and I appreciated it. But
call him back and tell him that. He'd love to hear that.
Yeah, or send him a message. He definitely would appreciate that.
Yeah, I will. But what I wanted to say first, Jen, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that people just, you were talking and this person was just talking over you and just ignoring. Pardon my dog. If you can hear him, he's a big boxer and he has a loud voice. But it's sad that you were talking and this person just didn't want to hear what you had to say about, why could you be? Well, how do you want to have a dialogue if you don't listen to me?
Right. Yep. If we can't start with talking, how are we going to get anywhere?
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And so I wanted to ask, Dan, I don't know your story a lot, and and if this applies to you answer me too.
Sure.
Should I continue to try to have a dialogue with my family? Can you cuss on the show?
Absolutely.
or should I just say fuck it and go about
Go
my
for
business
it.
and live my life?
I have some
You know what
thoughts.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I have some thoughts about this. Unless
first,
you do.
yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I say, Kamal. The first thing you have to determine is, does your family want to have a dialogue with you? Because if they don't want to, it doesn't matter what you do. Nothing's going to happen there, right? I think about it like you're starting a relationship with somebody. You know what I mean? If they're not going to accept your advances and they don't want you in your life, you can't force somebody to like you. You can't make that happen. So it's the same thing with when we're talking about these kinds of subjects. Some people, this is a closed off area in their life that they don't want to go to, whether it's because they're afraid to, whether it's because they were taught not to, right? I mean, there's all kinds of reasons here, and I don't know your family's background, but my guess would...
I'm sorry. We were raised Christian in my family, where everyone was raised Christian. I was in the early years of my life, I was at a foster home, and I was raised by a lady, and she was straight down home Christian. I mean, I used to come home pretending I was a preacher, for Christ's sake. I kid you not. I used to want to be a preacher. I thought that was my calling.
Yeah,
I really did. And yeah, and you're right. We were raised, and for me to, it just kind of came out like, and my brother kept saying, my brother kept saying that I went through Hurricane Michael, right? Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
And he kept saying that God. No, I was fine. I wasn't.
Okay,
nothing like
good.
that. But it was bad down here though. But he kept saying that God is watching out for you. God is watching out for you. And I don't know if y'all know, I am in a wheelchair. I was wounded in combat and on February 14th of 06. I was wounded in combat, and it left me in a wheelchair. And my brother constantly saying that God got you. God is watching out for you. God is watching you. And I said, man, I don't believe in no gods, man. I don't believe in no gods at all. And he paused and looked at me like, I mean, I never saw that look in his face before. He like, what did you just say? And he thought I was joking, and I was serious. And we started having the conversation, and it just went south real fast. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah. Oh, I have so many thoughts about this, but yeah, Jenna, go for it.
Well, so
Go ahead.
so for family, I that's what I'm dealing with right now, and I have I have a very large family. I have like 100 people with just aunts, uncles, and cousins.
Okay.
But I think there's 4 people that I'm on a regular talking to basis with now.
Wow.
It might be more than that, but I mean, it's been almost a year. So so I still don't know about the rest. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take it one person at a time. And just as it comes up and as I have an opportunity to have a conversation with someone, just take that individual person as an individual and not go, oh, well, then, this side of the family and this side of the family, and I don't want to group anybody together because each person's going to have their own opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's, with the family. But when it comes to like people on the street, I actually have the most awesome experience with actually just yesterday. There's a bridge near my house where there's some homeless people that with signs and things. And sometimes there's people out there with church flyers promoting some kind of ministry or something. And just yesterday there was a group of people out there and they were promoting something, and I was like, oh, I don't give money to churches. And he's like, oh, we're not a church. And I was like, oh, what are you? He's like, oh, we're a ministry. And I was like,
it's so different. I should have known.
Right. I was like, ministry for what? He's like, oh, we're followers of Jesus. I was like, oh yeah,
of course.
See, I don't believe in all that, but I'm good, thank you. Yeah. And he was like, oh, okay, God bless you. And I was like, I'm good, thanks. And then he just kind of walked away. But he came back, and he walked past me, and he stopped, and he put his head down, and he comes back at me. He's like, I just gotta ask, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you don't hear the gospel? Or I was like, nope. And he'd never met somebody that gave him just a calm response like that before. I mean, that was my impression,
Yeah.
at least. So I think that that's a pretty effective way to get through to people, because these people aren't expecting it from you.
Right.
They're getting a normal response of people just ignoring them or whatever. But when you're just like, you know what, I'm not gonna hate you, I'm not gonna yell at you or cuss you out. I'm just gonna be like, you know what?
Right.
That's silly.
Well, it's like, hey man, I've been buying this thing my whole life. How come you're not buying this? Like it's a rejection of an identity almost when you talk about this. First of all, Kamal, I want to say you're getting a lot of love from the YouTube chat right now, who want to send you lots of love. And also, you should definitely check out the ACA Discord as well. I'm sure there's be lots of people who are willing to talk to you about this after the show as well.
I do, man.
Yeah.
It's some great people. I talk to them frequently. Sometimes I go in. I'm kind of a shy dude. I don't really, I go in and I'll read the comments and, listen. And people always, when I do speak, people always, because when I called Eric and V, I spoke to them on that show. Mm-hmm. I broke down, and it just happened because that was like the first time I talked. A little while back, a couple of days before that, I talked to my brother, and he hung up on me.
Oh.
Yeah, he hung up on me.
I hate that.
And I went back. I tried to call it. I thought it was a mistake. I thought maybe his battery went dead or something. I was praying that's what it was. Like, really? I was praying.
And if you were praying, then that means something, right? Yeah. Well, come on, let me I'd love to just talk about this a bit more with you, because I want to go back to kind of my thesis here. The first thing, like I said, I would definitely think about whether or not this is a conversation you want to have with your family members, whether or not it's really going to affect your relationship with them. I'm at a point right now where I don't have to talk about it with my family anymore. But I remember when I first was coming out with this was a big deal to me, because this was a change for myself, and I wanted other people to know that. So first I would make that value judgment. But next I would just recognize that although Christianity really is just, to us it's a belief system, but to your family it's an identity, okay? And so when you are saying you're not a Christian, you're rejecting their identity of what they want you to be. And in that, you're rejecting the way that you grew up, you're rejecting the values that you were taught, the community you were a part of. Okay, so it's a little bit more complicated than just saying, well, philosophically, I just don't think that there's the Christian God, right? Like there's a lot more socio-political elements going on there, and that's just something that, unfortunately, I mean, it's literally our cross to bear at this point. I don't know why I said literally, but no, it's the struggle that we right now as atheists have to deal with until that gets better. And you know what? It's getting better every day. We've got people, you could talk to us, you could talk to others. But there is something that you're just going to have to accept and learn for yourself, that they may not fully recognize and accept your current identity at the moment. And I hope they do come out, but it's something you got to prepare for,
Something Jenna said, you have a big family. That's the funny thing. I have a small family. I'm the oldest. And I used to take care of my sister and my two brothers. My mom worked at 2 diners to take care of us.
Wow.
And I would, when she was leaving in the morning, we was going out to school. I was making sure she was on her way to work. I was making sure my sisters and brothers was where they need to be. And when she was on her way home, when she came home, I had to make sure dinner was cooked and all these different things. And I had to take care of my brothers and sisters. And right now, we have one aunt. I don't have a mother. My mom passed away. My dad passed away. Like, I have a very small family, and I am the oldest. But I don't feel like anymore. And I mean, listen to me. From my nephews and nieces, I used to encourage my sister don't even want me to be around my nieces, my nephews and nieces anymore.
Gosh.
Like she didn't say it to me, but it got back to me that she feels. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm the same dude that taught you, that gave your son the idea. He likes the weather, right?
Yeah.
And I'm from Detroit, and it snows. And one time we saw lightning while it was snowing. And I was explaining to him how that works. And he was so interested in it now that he wants to be help me out. I'm having
A meteorologist. Yeah.
Meteorologist.
That's
yeah.
cool.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing that, heck, my son is 25. He's a college graduate. He's doing great in his life. And even my daughter, she's on her way to the Air Force. Heck,
Wow.
I'm as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the kids that have been in my life, I'm 3 for 3. All of my babies do what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Wow.
The Marine, even though I couldn't walk, my left leg is really strong, and I kept that firmly planted in their behind because I wanted to do something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you cared about them enough to invest in their lives.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that my sister would not want me in my family, in my baby. I consider them my babies. They not want me in their life.
Yeah.
Have you
But
ever
I
considered confronting her and just asking her in a nice
Well,
way?
the
You know,
thing
just is this
supposed to
true?
Well, she was supposed to come over from, and she was an hour away from me, where my cousin lives. He's a pastor. He has his own church and all this stuff. And he's an hour away from me. They didn't come check on me after the hurricane. They didn't do none of that. It was like, wow, like really? She was supposed to come see me last year during Thanksgiving. Well, she told me she was on a walk and they went walking or something and she sprained her ankle. That was her excuse for not coming. My brothers came and I enjoyed their time. It was tense with the third oldest, but the youngest, me and him had it was so great to hug him because I hadn't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
And my son's mom, she thinks that I turned my son into an atheist. I've never talked to we've talked about religion, but my son became an atheist on his own. I never tried to persuade him one way or another.
Sure.
But I always taught him to critically think about each and everything you do, you believe. I've always taught that to my babies, but my heart's broke, y'all.
It's terrible, and I'm actually experiencing something similar. I'm worried about if I were to go to a family event. I have a couple nephews, and it's like they're about seven-ish, that kind of age, and I usually am the one person that goes and plays with them, and I'm like I don't want to assume that anything would be weird, but I have a feeling that there would be eyes on me if I was to play with them alone, It's
going to be weird, sis.
It's going to be weird. And it's really unfortunate for us that we are put in this position where we're assumed to be vindictive and, conniving and out to get people. But the best thing that I think that we can do is to just represent ourselves as we are and just not be that way and just give them no reason to think that we are.
Right.
What angers me is I'm the same person.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I'm the same dude.
Just keep doing you. And if people are going to act out and lash out or shy away, let them, because people are going to do that. You're going to lose people.
Yeah. And
my brother even went so far. My brother even went so far as to take me off his friends list on Madden.
Oh,
I've lost several.
not on Madden. No. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I was like, brother, what are you doing? He took me off Facebook. That's the only social media I use is Facebook, just so my family can know I'm okay, because I am down here in Alabama by myself. But he took me off Madden, on PlayStation, on Xbox. I'm like, brother, what is it?
And if they want to do that, then let them, because I have people who've done that to me, and you know what? I can't do anything about it. So I'll be here if they want to come back and they want to try again. I'll be here.
Yeah, and the way I frame this, Kamal, I think you have a choice. You have a choice to either maybe compromise on your values a little bit to save a relationship with your family, or continue to just be who you are and not apologize for that. Now, I won't judge you either way. I don't think anybody has the right to judge you either way,
Agreed.
because let me tell you something.
Right.
I've heard some stories from some Jehovah's Witnesses and from some Mormons and from some people who have even more extreme beliefs than your family does. And when they spoke out about it, it wasn't good.
Right.
And the consequences of that are just as bad, if not worse, than what we're talking about right now. And what we're talking about right now is pretty bad. That's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you have I can at least say you're fortunate enough to be an adult and to have your own kids and to have your own family and your kind of own social networks. And I can't even imagine what it's like to explain to your kids about why your family situation is. I cannot relate to that because I don't have kids of my own. But I will say this, like, it gets, for myself, it's gotten easier over time. I think for most people, it does get somewhat easier. Not for everybody, but as long as you continue to be the person that you are and continue to be the same person. And if they want to desire that relationship with you to have with you, they're going to have it with you. But that's on them. You got to put the ball in their court, dude, because you can't worry about what they think if that's the way they're going to treat you, because it's not healthy and it's not beneficial for you. So
I've noticed some people were like down here in Alabama. Like Alabama is like, this is Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
It's
oh
like
yeah,
that here too.
oh yeah.
We're not like, it's this gas station where everyone meets up and everybody talks about whatever. Everybody talk, and I let it slip out. I said, I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
How quiet. I am not kidding y'all. It got quiet in there.
I bet.
It was looking at me like, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone or something. Like, they looking at me like, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I thought I put my hand on I'm reaching for the thing because I'm like, what's really going on? No, not really.
You're bold. I could never just come out and say that to a group of people.
I didn't have, because that's like you said, brother. I am my own man,
Good
and
for you.
I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps.
Oh, you're
Right,
see,
Semper
well,
Fi.
then you have reason to not be scared. I have reason to be scared.
Yeah.
Right, I understand, sis, and I never could. Pardon me, I call everybody, all the sisters, sis.
Oh, you're good.
Big part. But I can't help but be who I am, and that's just it's just ingrained in me. I can't help it, and I'm gonna be me. And like you said, if I wanted to hear what y'all had to say, but the fact is, like y'all said, I'm gonna be me, and I can't I'll never let another man dictate my life or dictate.
Absolutely.
I dictate who the hell I am. Nobody else tell me what I gotta be and what I don't have to be.
Freaking
I'm my own boss.
Yeah, for sure.
And once people start understanding that you don't have to believe in I don't have to believe in what you believe in for us to be friends. You can believe, but you know what? It's the whole, you're going to go to hell, and I don't want to associate myself with anyone that's going to hell.
For sure.
Get the hell out of here with that trash.
Yeah. Kamal, I could talk about this all day, and hopefully we've given a lot of good advice for you. At least I know I tried to, and hopefully this conversation was helpful. We do have some other people waiting on the line to talk to us, but thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I do hope that you're doing well. And please keep checking in on the Discord and send me a message on through my email and stuff too, man. Like, I want to hear about your situation, what's going on. I love to keep in touch with you, man, because it sounds like what you're going through is tough, and you need some good friends that got your back.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Y'all have a blessed. I was finna say a blessed. Y'all.
That's okay.
Y'all be cool.
Thank you, Kamal. You too.
He's talking to Kamal.
Oh my goodness.
He's still breaking the habit.
It's the habits, right? Isn't that crazy? And all of our socialization, it's still there. I say stuff like, man, I was praying that this wouldn't happen or something like that. I did that the other day with a coworker, and I was like, oh, what the
Saying bless you after sneezing took me a long time.
Now, I've stopped doing that now, mostly because I just think it's annoying, and I don't think people need to do it. But
I agree.
also because,
I agree. Why did we do it in the first place?
So I read this one time. Apparently, it was like, I want to say it was like the Black Plague or something.
Oh.
And like if people sneeze, people thought you had like the Black Plague, so they say bless you to be like, oh, don't get the Black Plague. Then maybe it was some other illness or something like that. But man, what a deep call. You know?
Yeah.
What a deep
But that was
call.
important.
Yeah, it is important. I'm really glad that we got to talk to Kamal, and I hope that you guys in the chat who are watching this or who are listening to this at home, you keep in touch with him as well as we continue on. But we still got some other callers here. We definitely want to move on. I want to get to Danny in Austin. Hey, Danny, what's going on?
Hi, Danny.
Hey. So I want to know like how to like talk to like religious people like seriously and without offending them. Like for example, yesterday I was on the bus and like this guy comes up to me and he starts talking to me. Like he's African American and he's gay and you know he was hitting on me and blah blah blah. And he sees my atheist wristband. So instead of like hitting on me, or continuing hitting on me, he decides to tell me about his church and how Jesus has fixed all his problems. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's fixed your problems, like, I mean, like, come on, the book orders a death penalty for people like you and me. The people who wrote the book hate people like you and me, and we're fine with your people being slaves. In fact, the book gives, tells you how to regulate slavery. And of course, it shut him down. And I was not trying to be rude to him, but I'm like, come on, like, how can you be part of an organization that has for centuries wanted your death and was okay with your people being slaves?
Yes. Okay, so let's break this situation down because in this particular context, this is somebody who's approaching you with a subject, right? And I would say that the strategy that you use for that is a little bit different than if you were to talk to somebody else out of your own whim, right? So I'd say in self-defense, you know, you can pretty much say what to your heart's content on why you do or don't believe in something. But I think what you're asking about is how to have an effective conversation with someone, right? Like you want to have some dialogue, right?
Yes, because my first instincts were like, oh my God, I need to like get this bullshit away from me. So I told him, even if your made up God was real, I would still reject him. You know?
Yeah.
So those reasons.
So here's how I would.
I want to know how. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about framing in these kinds of contexts. So rather than saying I think your beliefs are stupid, right? Instead, what you want to frame it as, well, this is what I believe, or this is what I don't believe, and these are kind of the conclusions that I've come to. And you can give reasons why or why not, but it's a bit different when you're talking about yourself and your own ideas rather than picking apart another person's ideas. Because when you start to pick apart a person's right there, especially if they don't anticipate you to like fight back, then the self-defense kind of comes in for them, right?
Can I disagree?
You disagree with me? Yeah. Well, how do you disagree?
Well, he said that he came up to him and just started talking about how Jesus fixed all his problems. My instinct is to go, how? What problems did he fix and how did he do it?
So that's a bit different.
To ask, specifics.
So yeah, asking specifics I think is different from what we were talking about before, because if I start talking about, your thing is bullshit because of slavery in the Bible and X, Y, and Z.
Right. No, I wouldn't have done that.
Right. So that's being critical of another part of what we're talking about. So what you're talking about is examining the specific claims that somebody's
right. Whatever he's throwing at me, to slow it down and be like, okay, no, what are you actually saying?
Yeah.
And to call him out on it in a way and be like, oh, well, what specifically did he do?
So that's So again,
because then they're like,
yeah.
They don't expect that. They don't ever expect that.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, because I'm used to throwing out like death beams, like, oh, what can I say to piss them off and shit.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to you.
I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. So
I don't want to do that anymore.
It's
not very effective in deconverting people.
Questions are effective.
This is like my life motto at this point. I must say this on this show every single week, if not every other episode. You can be right and you can be convincing, and those can be two different things.
Totally.
Right? So it doesn't matter the truth bombs you're spitting out there. If you're not being convincing, you're not being convincing. Right?
I don't think I have the truth. So when people ask me what do you believe, I'm like, I don't know from the get-go, So I don't like to claim things at this point right now.
Yeah.
Because I really don't claim to know much. So when somebody wants to talk to me about belief claims, I'm like, hey, let's talk about what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
You tell me what to believe.
Yeah. And that's interesting because in this particular situation, you were approached by someone with that, which to me, that would be an exciting thing.
I love
at this point in my life.
Now.
Yeah, but that's what the show is for. But yeah.
Well, being a flamboyant gay man, I get approached by street preachers all the time. So
really?
Oh, wow.
Yes, I'm just used to throwing out death bombs and saying really offensive
You're in
things about
Austin?
the Bible to shut them down. I am right now. But like, I've been to Nashville before, and Nashville was a nightmare. Oh my God. I was a street preacher magnet. I was like, what's the most rude thing I can say? So of course, I brought up Ezekiel chapter 4, where God makes Ezekiel cook some bread, but orders him to cook it with his own excrement for fuel, and other things like that. Or or the fact that the crucifix is basically enshrines human sacrifice, which I think is disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like all those things are super true, and like we could talk about this stuff all day. But like, if you're not in the right space of mind to have those kinds of conversations, then you're not gonna be as convinced to go in that direction. So I actually like Jenna's take on kind of a more street epistemology approach. If you're talking about it, like ask specifically what he's saying, especially if he's making a claim like he's healing, right? Like that's a big deal.
Let me see. What did he do?
Yeah, and because
how did he do it?
They're probably not used to those kinds of questions, I imagine. I mean, if they are, then maybe people put up a fight for a little bit and go away. But if you really stick to them, you might be able to change their minds.
But something that's important and that I had mentioned and talked about with Anthony when he was here about a week ago was that it almost doesn't work if you're being insincere. Like if you're coming out like, hey, so I got this question, this is gonna get him. This is gonna get him.
Here's my gotcha right here. Yeah,
they can sense that, and then their guards up, and they're not gonna listen to anything you really say. They're just all surface at that point. But it's like if you really ask them, like eye contact, and just show sincerity, and be like, I really want to know.
Yeah, and I understand, Danny, that like as you put it, a flamboyant gay man, like I don't think sincerity is necessarily deserved in that sense, right? Like they definitely owe you sincerity more than you owe them. But I mean, if we're just talking about plain and simple talking to people and convincing people's minds, unfortunately, that's just how human beings work. Even if you're being a dick to somebody, they don't expect you to be a dick back, right? Like it just doesn't work.
No,
it's
they
like
just usually expect me to take it. So when I come out when I show that Kitty has claws, they don't like it.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to bring them out.
So, like, if let's say, Danny, I'm Mr. Street Preacher here, okay, and I'm saying, hey, look, I think Jesus has healed me, and I believe He can heal you too. What would your first response to that be? Let's try this out.
I would say, I was born right the first time. Don't need to be born again a second time. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. See, short and sweet. I like that.
You were.
Yeah. I guess that's if you wanted to have, if you want to have that conversation with him though, if you're interested in that, right? Because it sounds like you were. What would you say? Or would that be the thing you say?
Well, if he was cute enough, I would be like, oh, okay, tell me more about this Jesus. And then like gradually take him off topic.
I love it. Okay. So maybe maybe just hitting on him is a strategy we haven't actually explored yet. Maybe that's the secret.
Well, yeah. If you, geez, like, do you know how exciting it is? Oh, this guy's gonna come up to me. He's gonna talk to me. Oh my God! And the first thing out of his mouth is Jesus. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
But you can look at it as an opportunity. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
I'm not gonna lie. I felt really good after I blew that guy's mind that somebody could possibly be happy and just like a normal person and be an atheist. That guy's mind yesterday was blown. It made me feel good.
Yeah. So.
Well, yeah. I am a happy person. I really don't care about their made-up beliefs, and they don't have any proof. And every time I ask them for proof, they just show me something somewhere that somebody in the Bronze Age wrote a very, very long time ago that's been translated by many, many people. Yeah. I'm like, that's not very convincing to me. Have you ever heard of the game Telephone? Do you know how it's similar?
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's just the way it is. Like, it's how we see it now, but unfortunately, they live in a completely different world than we do, and sometimes it's a little bit disheartening having these conversations because it feels like we'll never reach the other side. But I think through patience and conversations and a little bit of hitting on people, we'll probably get there, right? It's just going to take some time.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, I hope we gave some good advice for this. A little bit of a shorter call, but...
No, perfect. I learned not to not to turn them off right away by throwing death bombs, but to genuinely ask them why they believe that and try to redirect the conversation.
I think that's a
Thank
great
you very
start.
much.
Absolutely. Danny, you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. I learned some things today, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to flirt with the next pastor I see, I think, and see what happens.
Oh, wow. I'd want that on video.
Yeah.
Okay, get it done.
I guess that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd actually go through with it, but now that I'm thinking about it, it would make a pretty funny video.
It could be.
Yeah, could be. So we got 3 more callers here on the line. I want to get to all 3 of you guys before we peace out for tonight. So please stick around. Next up, I want to get to my main man. It is Min from California. Hey, Min, how is it going?
Hello.
Hello, Dan. Hello, Jenna.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing awesome.
Good.
Doing awesome. I get to hear from my favorite Buddhist repeat caller. Woo! What is up?
Awesome.
So then today I would love to hear your opinion about a statement like many religious people say, it is true to me.
Okay.
And when I listened to Anthony conference, when he explained, the tactics to talk to believers, he seems to have problem, really big deal with the statement. And I do have opinion about that, but I would love to hear your and Jenna, what's wrong with this statement?
Okay. What's the statement? Min, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What's the statement that we would have a problem with exactly?
Yeah, so I guess like Anthony, he feel like people who the most difficult to get a hold of is the people who say, well, my belief is true to me, and I think he said something like it's like relativistic view or something like that.
Yes.
And I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I would love to hear your response and general response.
Sure. Yeah. What a great question. I don't know Anthony's personal take on it. I think Anthony would say that someone saying a belief is true to them is something that's worth examining. And I think that's something I would say too. I would say it's at least worth examining. I wouldn't necessarily say that a belief can't be just true to somebody because that couldn't be the case. And I haven't discovered that yet. I will say that depending on the belief, beliefs motivate our reasoning in some sort of ways. And so when people say, as belief is true to me, there's certain circumstances that cause them to have this belief, and this belief kind of motivates their thinking in some other ways. And typically, this isn't a fact about reality. When people say, this is true to me, we're not talking about whether or not the earth is flat. We're talking about how to love somebody, or whether or not there's a God, or something that's actually personal to them and not necessarily a fact about the universe. I think that's what most people mean when they say this belief is true to me. It's worked out for me in some sort of circumstances, right? Maybe a casual superstition like, oh, I have this lucky rabbit's foot and it makes me feel lucky, and I don't know whether or not it actually gives me luck, but it's true to me that it gives me luck. That's kind of an example of what I'd say that. And what people don't maybe necessarily realize is when they say that they're making a claim about reality most of the time, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
If they say that, though, this rabbit's foot is actually giving me good luck, that might be something we could measure. Maybe not, but it's something that has an effect on reality regardless. And so I think that's what Anthony would say to that. It's saying, well, if it has an effect on reality, can we explore this? Is this something that we can confirm to be true or not true? And I would probably tend to agree with that. I would say, yeah, this is definitely something that's worth at least examining because I want to know if I can just take a rabbit's foot and just carry it around with me and give me good luck. I think that'd be cool. So,
yeah.
What do you think about this idea, Jenna?
So your question is, what's the problem with the phrase "it's true to me"?
Yeah.
I think that the problem is that, that when I hear people use that phrase, they're typically talking about something that can't be what's it, objective, subjective?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When they're talking about is there a God, to them, that is a fact. It's a fact or an opinion. It's a fact. Sorry. Just like it is a fact that the earth is round.
Mm-hmm.
To them,
Right.
that's the way it is. So when they say it's true for me, I really want to know what that means, because when I used to say things like that, that was a cop-out. So I would personally dig. I think that the problem with it is that I guess that it is a cop-out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jenna, because I think I realized that about myself when I said something along the similar lines of something being true to me.
Yeah.
And after later examination, I realized for myself, oh, I was just saying that because I didn't have a good reason.
Yeah.
And you kind of come to the bottom of the barrel. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but we can certainly look at cases where that might be true.
Because realistically, that person that does believe that there's a God, they believe that that's a God for that person and that person and that. They believe it's a God for everyone.
Yeah.
They just don't want to be offensive.
Right. That's true. Right. Like
They don't want to invalidate anybody.
When somebody says like Jesus saves people and that's true to me, they mean there was a dude named Jesus who died for people's sins and saved people. Like they think that that's true, but they're kind of hedging the language they use to be more politically correct or just to make things more comfortable for people. What do you think, Min?
So from my perspective, because I do see myself as a religious person too, so I would give you a mini story from the Taoist sage. His
That's
name
right.
is,
You are
Sun
Taoist,
Tzu.
and you're not actually Buddhist, right? I think I actually called you a Buddhist, but you're not actually Buddhist, right?
I don't know what.
Well,
Taoist-
I'm a Zen
Okay, yours,
Buddhist,
okay.
and yeah. So
What is
it's
that?
leaning
If you
towards
don't mind me
Taoism.
asking.
What's it, Jenna?
What is that? I'm sorry. I don't know what the word was.
A Taoist, you mean?
No,
Like
the one after that.
a Zen Buddhist?
Oh, Zen Buddhist?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing as a Taoist?
No, it's different. But
No, it's influenced by Taoism, but it's related closely to Taoism, but it still have its own flavor,
What's a Taoist?
I guess. Taoist is somebody who believes like there is a mystical thing that runs through the universe called the Tao, and it's permeate everything, but it's not a deity. It's simply like something, like it set the principle for life and the way of your.
it's an Eastern.
Like Donnie Darko?
Yes, actually, Donnie Darko would be a good example of that. But it's an Eastern philosophy that is kind of like Confucianism in the sense that they have beliefs about how the world works, but they're not necessarily religious in the sense that we think of Western beliefs when we're talking about gods and
Interesting.
things.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so the if you've ever seen the yin yang symbol, that's a Taoist symbol.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that is a representation of the Tao, if I'm not mistaken. But Min would know more about that than I would. So
Well, thanks. I learned something
Yeah,
today.
so there is this this Taoist sage. He has a meeting with his friend, and he went to a lake and he saw a fish like jump out of the on the surface of the water, and then he told his friend that, well, do you see that the fish look pretty happy when he jumped out of when he rise above the surface of the water? And then his friend said, well, you are not the fish. How do you know that he's happy? And the Taoist turns to say, well, you are not me. How do you know that I don't know? The fish is happy. And if you go
I know.
to-
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem, Jenna. Yeah, and if you go to, I think it is popular stories. If you Google on YouTube, I think they should show you the story.
Yeah.
And if you go to YouTube and you type, I think like Taoist perspective. So do you see the people will give the example that we have like if I draw a number 9 on the ground, right? And I stand on the side. I see number 9. The other person stand on the opposite side of me, who sees number 6.
Right.
So that number is that's what I consider like the objective truth. But because we have different filters, so we see differently. So I see not 9, but you see 6, because we come from a different, perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to me, when people say it is true to me, my understanding of what they say that because this is what I see, because I have a filter based on my background, my experience, my circumstances, and therefore that's how my interpretation of what I see to be the truth. But I don't think like they really mean like it's true to me and it's not true to you. It's just say because you don't have my perspective, you don't have my filter, therefore you don't see what I see.
Mm-hmm.
So can I?
Yeah.
Can I jump in here?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have, because Anthony Magnabosco actually has talked about this specific example, the 6-9 kind of interpretation of
Let's see if I
events.
hit it.
Yeah, well, you go for it.
So what I get is when you're talking about somebody that's looking at a 6 versus a 9, they're actually looking at it, and their perspective is showing them that it is whatever it is, right? But when you're talking about a God, and assuming that there's just an alternative perspective there, where is that 6 or that 9 that I can look at to show that it's an opposite? You know what I mean? Like if I'm saying I don't think there is a God because there's no evidence, and you're saying, well, it's true for me because I see the evidence, then I'm saying, okay, well, I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and what are you looking at?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, and so I would, we're coming at similar places here, because when we're talking about this object that one might call a 6 and one might call a 9, we can definitely see that there are properties to this thing. And we can definitely see that, look, Jenna, if you come around this table, you'll see that this 6 is a 9 from my perspective. So I can demonstrate a method by which you can come to the same conclusions that I would. When it comes to talking about religious beliefs, however, and somebody saying, oh, well, you just have to have the same experiences that I did, you can't, it doesn't translate as well, right? I can't feel the Holy Spirit in my heart like other people can.
Right.
It was, for what I interpret from my experiences, was something I was experiencing internally that I later labeled as the Holy Spirit, because that was the cultural frame of reference that was given to me. But look, I can actually look at this experience through the lens of psychology and through the lens of science in general, and I can find that other people also experience this thing that one might call the Holy Spirit, that aren't even related to Christianity at all, that have no contact with Christian culture, but we see common ties there through biology, right? And so that's kind of my response. I think it just comes to the method of how you got to that worldview, because even the 6 and the 9 guys, they have a method where they came to it. They came to it at certain sides of the number, right?
Yes. Yes, and I want to say that the 6 and the 9 is actually something we can both see. And when it comes to spiritual belief or religious belief, it's essentially like many of those concepts tend to be abstract, and you don't even see it, so it's difficult to even confirm what other people believe. We cannot even compare and contrast. We cannot even see it.
It's not so abstract,
right?
Or it's a little more abstract.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that what their conclusions aren't correct. Like, if you say that you're in love with somebody and somebody else says they're in love, how do I know that person's experiencing the same thing I do? Well, they're probably going through something similar, and they're just kind of using that label because it gives a reference point to the experiences that we culturally understand. You see what I mean? Even though I can't actually prove, unless I get a brain scan on you, that I knew that you were in love with somebody, that doesn't mean that we don't have any zero frame of reference whatsoever to know exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, when we're talking about emotions, I can't assume that I know what emotions you're feeling right now ever. It's It's just interesting to me that people think that they can go that far.
It's true. We can definitely recognize similarities through empathy, right? Like through situations, and be like, oh, I had a similar situation happen and I felt this way. This is probably what this other person is feeling. And we kind of use inference.
Well, so the problem with that, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you to an extent, but from my experience, I'm an extremely empathetic person. And my problem that I've had sometimes in life is assuming that other people are as affected by things as I am.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
You know? And so when I think about, I drop it. Like, you know what? I don't know what they're, I'm not going to assume that this person is as affected as I would be or as unaffected as I am, because everybody feels things so differently,
That's
when it
true.
comes to death, when it comes to loss and change of jobs and new things. It's everybody's so different.
And some people don't even feel it all.
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't assume.
Yeah. That's a good policy to have, I think, in general. But Min, as always.
Sorry, I took us off a little topic.
Min brings us into the weeds, and we really look at stuff, and I like it. That's why he's my favorite Taoist caller. Sorry, I said, Zen Buddhist caller. All right, Zen Buddhist caller. I was still right. But anyway, we still have these two other people that we want to get to. I know we usually make more time for our great conversations, but I do want to try to wrap the show up on time tonight. Do you have any words of wisdom to give to us before we let you go?
Well, I don't really have any word of wisdom because I think wisdom is pretty much intuitive. It's not, logical. So I
see that.
Cannot give it to you.
Look,
hey, that's
wisdom right there. He gave it to us. He didn't even realize it. It's amazing.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you guys taking my call, and and I hope I can talk to you again then, because you are the one that I can have an extended dialogue without feeling rushed, because I talked to Talk Hidden and the Atheist Experience before, and they are wonderful. But I feel like I have to keeping to the time. It's pretty fast.
Right.
They're a little quicker.
You are more like slow down for me, so I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Send this clip to Eric and Matt, please. Guys in the back, thank you. All right. But,
thank you, guys.
It's so nice meeting you.
Thank you, Min. Really do appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
you are always welcome to call back, my friend. Always welcome to call back, especially if I can rub it in other people's faces that my show is better than the other shows.
Says Min.
Yeah. I got Min's approval, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, again, I said this last time we called, but how many atheist talk shows, I don't know, this is an atheist talk show. How many other ACA productions do you get to hear cones read to you, all right? Just one, Truth Wanted, so far. And they're not taking that from me. They're not taking that from me. So, anyway, that's Min. Min's the best.
Min's cool.
He's
I like
super
him.
cool. I love Min. Min makes my week. He's so good.
I like that kind of conversation, just that philosophical discussion.
It's just a great perspective to have because, we grew up around Christians. We just talk about Christianity.
I know.
It's
the same thing.
But Taoism, especially, and Zen Buddhism are just such interesting philosophies.
I didn't know
to examine.
people actually thought that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's a whole thing.
I got to look into that more, too.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get to our last two callers for tonight. I want to get to River in Michigan. Hey, River, can you hear us? What is up?
Hi, River.
Yes, I can. Thank you. How are you guys doing?
Man,
Pretty
we're
good.
doing awesome. Yeah, just having a good time tonight.
Yeah. I'm going to keep this as brief as I can so I can get to the next caller. Would this be the appropriate show to ask about secular morality, or should I wait for it?
Absolutely, this is the appropriate show to ask about secular morality. Go for it.
Yeah. So I recently came out of like a Catholic faith, and I'm trying to carry over as many things into my I don't like to call it atheism, but I guess I should. As I can, and so what I want to carry over is, my bottom line is I want morality and meaning. Those two things I'm good in life. And so I pretty much have the meaning thing down. I understand that you can create your own meaning and that things have meaning to you, even if they don't have meaning to the universe. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say in some way that I'm struggling with morality a bit, and I'm a little bit scared about it because I'm hearing a lot of some atheists expose no, I wouldn't say a lot, but some atheists expose the view known as egoism, which basically says that you should treat other people well because it benefits you. And I want to form some kind of logical moral framework, maybe using empathy, that basically says you should treat other people well, not only because it benefits you, but also because it benefits them. And I've heard a lot of atheists try to justify this. They say, well, you can easily see that you should do this through empathy. But I'm just having trouble making that logical jump. Is it really true that you should help another person because you could be in their same position? I'm just trying to bridge that logical gap.
What a fantastic
I
question.
like this.
What a fantastic question. You got some thoughts, huh?
No, you first.
Okay,
I like this.
So here's what I'll say about this, River. When it came to my own deconversion from my Christian faith, the history didn't bother me the most. The science didn't bother me the most. The philosophy didn't bother me the most. Well, the philosophy did, because to the major point, the morality thing bothered me more than any other part, because I felt the exact same way, River. I could not understand how atheists understood morality. It didn't make sense to me why people were motivated to do the things that they did, and what constitutes a good secular morality. What does morality even mean? What does that look like for human beings? And then I realized morality is a construct of human beings. It's all it is. There's nothing intrinsic to it. And people will disagree with me on this. I'm more of a moral nihilist, if you want to put a label to it. I think humans created morality because we saw it necessary to our purposes, and in that sense, it is utilitarian. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the motivations to your morality can't be built on some kind of framework of logic or objective principles. But you have to understand that the desire or the want to help other people is ultimately going to be based on a subjective principle. I have not found a way to say that, like, this is an objective thing that has to be true and make sense. My name, Objectively Dan, comes from a parody of this idea, because I saw Frank Turek one time at Baylor University. Frank Turek, I asked him about morality and if morality was objective. And he said yes. And so I asked him if, when the guy in the Bible that stoned that other dude for picking up sticks on the Sabbath, whether or not that was an objectively good act or not. And long story short, I didn't really get a great answer out of him. But like, it pointed out the silliness to me that we can just have these objective principles that are going to last from the day to day and always be the same and always work out best for us, because we're always discovering new things, and we're always going to figure out, hey, this thing that we thought was good for people actually isn't. Hey, cigarettes? Not great for people. Used to be super awesome. Nobody had a problem. Now, if somebody told me that they want to start smoking, I have an ethical obligation, almost, right? Obligation in the sense that it's part of my principles, that I want to stop this person from smoking. If 100 years ago, nobody cared because it wasn't as big of a deal. But now I have more data, and I know, wow, this actually harms people. And that informs my morality and informs my choices on the day-to-day. So in short, River, it's a frustrating thing to figure out, because you want to make it like a logically consistent system of everything. And like, I've almost given up at this point. It only in the recognition that I still have my own wants and desires, and I still have some principles that I base off of those wants and desires. Is that egoism? Maybe. But I don't claim that what I believe is objective, that my morality is something that every single person should follow. Do I think I should follow it? Yes, that's why I have it. But I don't go as far as to say that, yes, there is a secular morality that everybody should follow because this is just the way it is and this is the best thing for human beings. I think that's always going to be up to interpretation. I don't think we'll ever be able to make the means justify the end. Wait, no. Whatever David Hume's fucking problem was, I can't remember. So
Is ought.
Thank you, River. I can tell you've been much more up to date on your research on this. So very good. Any thoughts on this, Jen?
Yeah. I think that you're right. Morality is only here because people are. And I think it has to be subjective because it's because of people.
Yep.
And so, when I think about what my morals are now, well, it boils down to what good can this bring and what harm can this bring? Mm-hmm. And that's what I go to.
And what I can at least
What-
recognize as good and harm,
Yes.
right? Because
In my experience so far, I'd say I'm worldly.
sure,
I don't know.
the Christians would say you're worldly for sure.
People, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people would. Mm-hmm. Some people won't. I'll say
Yeah.
that. But anyway, I that's just what I come to when I think about, is this morally good or not? I think, what good can it bring? What harm can it bring?
Yeah. So, River, I have no obligations to you. You can be a good person if you want to. That's still your choice at the end of the day. I think it just comes down to choice and what choices people make. Not really, people make systems for themselves, but ultimately it's an invented thing. That's what I think
agree.
it comes down to. So,
We made it up.
what do you think?
I'm gonna honestly, well, I don't know. I want to disagree, but I think I totally understand that if there were a universe with no living beings in it, there would be absolutely no morality. There would be no meaning, no morality. Nihilism would be true. But the thing is, we do live in a universe with living beings in it. And so I think, for example, if you're a human being, you have a goal of well-being. You want pleasure and you don't want pain. And that's a subjective desire, yes. But even though it's a subjective desire, there are objectively better and worse ways to achieve that desire. And so there are going to be things based, if you hold that desire, which you do, you don't have a choice that you do, there are things you should and should not do based on that desire. Now, that only leads you to egoism. But what I'm trying to make the jump to is I'm trying to say, well, if you consider another person and you consider that you could be that person, so if I look at another person, I say, I could basically say a statement that goes along the lines of, I should fulfill the desires of others because if I were those others, I would have the same desires. And so something along the lines of logical empathy. And so that's what I'm desperately want to be true. I'm very scared because I'm not sure if I want to live in a world without morality.
Well,
so I'm going to be frank here. So
River,
I apologize for dropping.
I never said that morality doesn't exist. I'm just saying that morality is a construct, right? So I think that's a different thing.
Yeah.
So going back to my name, is my name objectively Dan?
No, it was assigned. It's just what we assigned.
So,
to it.
but there's an entire world of people, at least 5,000 people, according to the YouTube subscribers. Who knows how many on Spotify and iTunes and wherever else you can find your podcasts at? Who know me as that name, who call me by that name, and is a name that we all agree is my name. That's kind of like morality, isn't it? Like we kind of eventually figured out a thing to call me as this blob of sludge that I am, and just say like, yeah, I'm Dan, and that was given to me at birth, and I could change that name, and I did. I'm objectively Dan now, but like, it's still an invented construct, even though we all agree, right? Even though you could objectively say, if your objective is, oh, what does it say on his birth certificate? Then objectively, my name is Dan. But if that's not the standard by which you judge something to be objective, is it what your family calls you? Is that what's objective? I mean, we could say the same thing about morality, right? We could decide which principles count as objective and what's not objective, and some might be better than others. I would argue that your legal name is a good indicator of what your name is, but ultimately a name is a name, and a name is invented. It's something we come up with, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he said it.
I hope I was consistent and clear through all that. I don't know. That's just my opinion, right? Like, there's definitely people smarter than me who have spent their entire lives trying to figure this stuff out. But
like, just because the English language is invented by humans, does that mean it doesn't exist?
Or does English have objective rules that we have to follow?
Right. You know, when I started learning, this is right before I became an atheist. I was crazy about learning, right? And one of the things that got me thinking was there was a TED Talk about words or the dictionary, and this person got up and she was like, "Who do you think writes the dictionary?" Because I used to be the kind of person that was like, "Oh, that's not a word.
Yeah.
You can't use that. That's not a word." But then I started, learning about the dictionary and how it works. And it just kind of depends on how we use the word. And they just kind of use algorithms and just try to figure out how we determine what that word means now. Because when you think about so many words that meant something else, 100 years ago, it just depends on how you use it. And so...
Yeah, we determine what's healthy for people,
Right.
Going back to that cigarette
It just
thing.
depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. If you had asked the plague doctor in the 1500s, maybe bloodletting would probably be the best thing for you, and that was what was healthy.
So that's the thing
but that's a different thing because that's dealing with evidence of anyway.
That's the thing that I love most about this new perspective is that it's not like there's this right or wrong list of things to do and right ways to do them. It's just look at it differently. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, but I can definitely agree that we can commonly define things as good and harm, and it seems to work out for us for our day-to-day lives. Are there going to be ethical situations that it doesn't work out all the time, every day? But that's just what we as humans have to do. We just have to deal with it. We have to look the void in the eye and say, I'm looking at you, void, and I don't care if you stare back or not, because the void looks either way. We could, you can't talk to the void. I don't know why you talk to the void in the first place. It's the void. But you got to do something because that's what it means to be human, man. I'll stand by that. Anyway, I thought that was good. Yeah. No, that wasn't really good. One day, somebody's going to quote all the stuff that comes out of this show, and it's going to be like, out of everything I've ever said, there's going to be like 2 minutes where I was like pretty on point, and then everything else is just kind of throw it away. But anyway, was that a good discussion, River? That was a lot of us talking. I hope maybe we found something here, right? River, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. It's just this is kind of echoing my fears back at me. I'm sorry.
Oh, really? What fears?
Like this whole nihilism, the fear of nihilism and the void, and I just.
What scares you about it?
I don't like the idea. It's like that it's totally optional. It's totally optional or arbitrary that I think I should help other people. I don't like.
Why?
Is it arbitrary though? Is it completely arbitrary? You have reasons to do what you do, right?
So the thing is that it kind of is in the sense of when it comes to the universe and whether or not the universe cares what I do. But when it comes to how it affects me, I mean, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
Because everything that I do has consequences.
Yeah, you're not the universe. You're you, and you have thoughts and desires.
You have your own world.
Yeah, you have things that you care about, and so it's gonna matter. Like this matters too. Yeah. Whether or not morality is objective or not, this is mattering to you right now.
And this is mattering to somebody else somewhere.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and so I like the saying, the universe doesn't care, but we do.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
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 And but it doesn't have to because it's out there.
Yeah.
We're here.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And so I totally understand that since I have desires, there's things I should and should not do to achieve those desires. But what I'm trying to get to is kind of what people like I've heard Matt Dillahunty reference empathy as some kind of like I don't want myself to be the arbiter of what is moral. I want to treat
River,
people as.
Listen, man, you ultimately are. Because here's the thing: someone could give you the best reasons in the world, but you're still the one deciding whether that's a good reason or not. Because there's people out there who will take that and reject it. They do it every day. Mm-hmm. You know, it's always going to come down to you, bud. You can't escape yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this has been a good conversation. Maybe this has definitely added a lot to my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And River, I want you to walk away from this conversation feeling empowered because
and not scared.
And not scared, dude, because it's easy to feel scared about this stuff, man. Jen and I can tell you, we've been there.
Yeah.
That existential fear is real. And I'll be honest with you, it comes back every once in a while.
In flashes.
It flashes, man. But once you start to coalesce with yourself and realize that you are who you are and that's all you're ever going to be, there's a peace that comes with that. If you look hard enough, there is a peace. And if that's what you need right now, that's what you need right now. You know? Take it easy, dude.
How are you feeling about this right now?
Not very good. I want to be able to say because of because of logical empathy, I have a moral obligation to just
Well, for your moral code, don't you?
like. I want to be able to say two things. One, I have a desire for well-being. Therefore, there's things I should not do based on that. Two, if I look at another person, I say I should help that person advance their desires, because if I were that person, I would have the same desires and wants as they would.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's objectively logically true, though.
I think that is subjectively, objectively true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, like you're developing a principle by which you can measure things by, which makes it objective
for you.
But the decision by which you are deciding that this is the principle by which you are measure things by is subjective.
Right.
So in that sense, she's right. It's subjectively objective. And here's the thing, man. Like, people have awful desires too, you know, and desires can't be the be all end all. But
yeah.
Here's the other thing too, River. I could be super freaking wrong. Both of Jen and I could be super wrong, and some cool philosopher guy is gonna be like, buy my fucking book on Amazon, guys. I got this shit figured out, and I just haven't fucking read it yet. So, like, don't listen to us. We're just two fucking people in our 20s on a call-in show talking about, I mean, like, who knows if we got it figured out. Yeah, we've done some reading, but the world's a big place. I don't know.
We're just talking.
And
being honest.
Yeah, and about how we feel and how we view things, but you're always going to find people who view differently. And
this is our perspective, and you have your perspective.
Yeah, enjoy the journey rather than the solution there, man, or the end game, because ultimately this is what's real to you right now. This is what you're going through, you know? So yeah. I hope that helps,
man.
Thank
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you, hey, real quick, if you do start to feel really down, maybe talk to somebody.
Yes.
Okay, the secular therapy project.
Secular therapy project.
Just because, you know, or also recovering from religion, because they have experienced talking to people like you and me who have gone through this. And so they might have better tips on what to do than I do, because I'm still learning. I'm still going through this.
Yeah, good advice there, Jenna. Thank you for saying that. But River, we'll let you go right now. Hey, take care of yourself, bud. You know, don't take life too seriously, man.
Just
enjoy it. Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. And that's all. YouTube will let me sing until we get demonetized. Anyway, River.
Nice talking to you.
Take care, man. Man, now I feel sad. I hope I didn't.
I hope we didn't break his heart.
Here's the thing. This is what happens to everybody at some point in their lives, right? I mean, people who really think about this.
So that's the thing, is it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And I've spent so much of my life running from what I thought was so bad all the time. And it's like, well, now it's, you know what? Just acknowledge the bad. And now I'm realizing the bad's not as bad as I thought it was. And so I'm learning about balance and bringing good things and bad things into my life, just allowing things to happen. You know? So, you know, I've started meditating to help me with this, because I have generalized anxiety disorder. So I have anxiety on a daily basis. So I struggle with this, and meditation has helped with that, because it's helped me with freaking out over doing the right thing all the time and going the right way and having the right answers for everything. And it's teaching me how to, okay, you know what? I'm here right now.
You're present.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Like, stop freaking out about what's going to happen and what happened before, because I have right here and I have right now, and that's all I have.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if that helps anybody, but
Yeah, no, that's. I think that's good advice. The meditation has been helpful for my life as well. I don't do it nearly as often as I should, but I used to have a pretty good practice.
It helped me quit smoking.
Yeah, and
cigarettes.
That's one of those things too, where you can actually look at it and show some science behind it and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
So, but life is complicated, and I don't have it all figured out.
Who does?
So, yeah, and morality is one of those big things. You know, I think I actually agree with River in the sense that I do think atheists in particular jump to kind of this conclusion of egoism kind of quickly. And I
see that.
think there is more to consider than that. But it's something we've explored on here and something we could definitely explore more on another day. But for now, I'd like to get to our last caller here for tonight. Let's go ahead and go to Glenn in Pennsylvania. Hey, Glenn, how's it going?
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, how are you?
Awesome.
Doing just fine.
Good.
What did you want to talk to us about?
Sure. So you advertise and your show's called Truth Wanted. I wanted to call in with the truth that there is no God.
Okay.
How do you know?
Because it's simple deduction. God can be ruled out because it's so unlikely. If you take the beginning of the universe situation, things start out simple and work their way towards complex. They don't start out complex and then start over again at simple and work towards complex.
But just because something is unlikely, does that mean it's not possible?
It's so unlikely that it can be ruled out.
But does it mean it's not possible?
It's so unlikely. It's by saying it's so unlikely means it's possible, but to the degree that is so small that it can be ruled out.
But it's still possible, though, right?
But
Would you
I'd
agree with me that
agree.
it's still possible?
Okay, if you want to take anything as possible.
Heck
okay,
yeah.
anything
Heck
is
yeah, we're going to
possible.
go with anything is possible route.
I mean, I agree with you to that extent.
Go for it, Jenna. You wanted to talk.
Well, but just, I mean, I agree with you that it's to an extent where we rule it out. That's why I call myself an atheist.
Sure, yes.
Because I've ruled it out.
But it's so unlikely that it can be ruled out, and so.
But I can't say that I know for sure.
So you don't know for sure, but as you go along in life, you can rule out so many things, and this is one of them. And
I can
so,
rule it out, but I can't say that I know for sure.
Okay,
To me, those are two
but
different things.
It's so unlikely that it's sure. Okay, if you take the beginning of the universe, why would it start out with the most complex being possible and then start over?
Well, we could say that this God doesn't necessarily follow the laws of the universe.
Okay, but how likely does that even sound? It sounds like
Well, what does likelihood mean if the God's not following the laws of the universe, right? If the laws of the universe determine likelihood and the God doesn't follow that, then we can't actually make a prediction of what's likely and what's not, right?
I disagree. I think that the whole concept of any kind of intelligence, any kind of deity, to start out the beginning of the universe is just so unlikely.
Yes, but do you agree with me that likelihood is determined based on physics?
Physics and observation?
Sure. Okay. So what about a God that doesn't follow physics?
It's made up fiction. It doesn't even make sense.
From a physics standpoint, yes. But if it's not even in the realm of physics, if it's outside of physics, right?
It's like one of the most fictional stories ever made up.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm obviously, Glenn, like we're both atheists. Like we come to the same conclusions you do in that regard. But to just say that God,
He's just playing devil's advocate.
yeah, just playing devil's advocate here. But when it comes to the likelihood thing, like when Christians specifically talk about the modern conceptions of God, I don't think the ancient Jewish people would have argued about this way of God, but the modern Christians like to say that God is outside of the laws of the universe, man.
People say that.
Outside of space and time. He runs on his own rules, you know?
They had to say that because we got to where we can see almost everything.
I agree with you.
Right.
I 100% agree with you.
But they validate it in their heads, and that's how I used to validate it too. I'd say, "Oh, you know what? Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not true."
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know why.
That's a thing people say. But yeah, but I agree with you that the ancient concept of Yahweh is definitely not the same as God of today, at least by most people's eyes. So.
Right. I understand people being skeptical, but there's no reason to be skeptical that there are no gods. That is just a fact. And if you really think that somebody's going to call in and say that they have evidence and get their Nobel Peace Prize and win their $1 million. It's not going to happen.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we know.
Well, one, I would say that,
but we want someone to try.
Yeah, well, one, Truth Wanted in particular as a project is a bit more open than just the God question. We've talked to people. I've had 9/11 truthers call in. I want more of those. I've talked to a guy who believes in Bigfoot. You know, so there's all kinds of claims that we can. Yeah, that happened.
Really believes in Bigfoot?
Y'all should look that up. That was Robert Stanley, guy who well, he was I would say believe Bigfoot was more lean towards belief than disbelief, I guess. His belief wasn't super strong. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So like people come in with all kinds of beliefs, and I want to know how they get to that, you know? And that's what Truth Wanted means to me. It's an exploration of why people believe what they believe. And I just think it's fun, man. I think it's fun talking to people about that, even if I disagree, right? Obviously, I come to a very different conclusion than a lot of people that call into this show, but that doesn't mean that the conversation isn't worth having just because I think that I'm right.
And I think that we've come to the same conclusion on this, right, Glenn? That we don't know for sure, but we've pretty much come to the conclusion that it's not likely.
Right, but that's on knowledge. It's a difference between knowledge and what you believe also. So I believe in like positive atheism, which is strong atheism or hard atheism or explicit atheism. Most atheists believe in the negative, weak, soft, implicit atheism. That's not asserting that there are no gods. They're just saying there's no proof. But I assert that there are no deities.
How would you be able to know for sure that there are no deities?
By common sense and complexity, the progression of complexity. Things do not start out with a complex being. Even if you want to say the complex being started and always existed, never started, it still existed before simple life forms, which does not make any sense at all.
Does a deity have to be complex by definition?
It sure seems like it with any definition I've ever heard. I mean, you could call it, if you want to say God is science, nature, physics, anything that's non-conscious, okay, but that's not how most people use the term God or deities. I myself believe it's just a not realistic option and can be ruled out.
How do you define common sense? That's something that always fascinates me.
Common sense, well, you can see complexity, the progression of it, where if you're going to say that a being is starting out as so complex or always existed that's so complex, it doesn't make logical sense. It just does not.
How do you define common sense, though?
Common sense is what you feel, your gut feelings, and your understanding of reality based on being in the world X number of years.
So the problem with that is that I had a gut feeling that a God did exist a year ago.
Right. Common sense, I didn't say common sense is always accurate.
You said that common sense was how we know that there isn't a God.
I use common sense along with all the other things, too. There's logic.
But I just showed why common sense is not reliable, right?
Common sense is not reliable in some circumstances, but it's reliable in others.
How?
Al, there's plenty of times when your common sense will get you through situations.
So then it sounds to me like common sense might be lucky sometimes.
It could be.
But does it sound like it's an accurate, like, epistemological tool?
Well, science can be wrong, too. Any way of thinking. Logic can be wrong. Anything you think could be wrong also. But I combined all these different factors to come up with these things, and I'm reasonably sure, beyond any doubt, there's not even really a doubt that no gods exist. So you wanted the truth, and that's the truth.
Interesting.
Well, I would say, or maybe you would agree with me, that there have definitely been people in history and today who say, yeah, if you just use common sense, then you'll realize that God is real, right? And it's exactly
I didn't say just use common sense, though. I'm saying use logic and science and physics.
Well, talk to William Lane Craig, dude. He'll say that if you use logic and if you use common sense, if you use all this, then you can come to the conclusion that God is true, or God is real, at least.
Okay, well, it can be interpreted wrong, as I say. All these different things can be misinterpreted.
Sure, and that's kind of the point that I think Jenna's trying to make here, is that if it can be interpreted wrong, then how reliable is it? And I agree with you. Like, ultimately, there's we could talk about brain in a vat scenarios all day, but I think common sense as a term is a very subjective thing. Like, way more subjective than what you might be leaning on.
With all the other things, too, including observation and everything else. simplicity starts out low and works its way up. It doesn't start out at a complex being that's going to start everything. It just does not make any sense whatsoever.
I think that may be
To
true.
you.
Yeah, that might be true to our observations, but we're also just some human beings on a single planet.
Like, I agree, it
Well, you
doesn't
have-
make any sense to me either, but to some people it does, and I think that that's valid. In the
You have
sense
to
that
make
some
judgments in life. As you go along in life, you have to make your judgment calls.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to interpret reality as best you can, and I believe my way is certainly accurate.
I think everybody would say that.
I guess so, but how can they explain a complex being starting the universe?
Told you, man.
I mean, a lot of people think that they really can.
Listen, here's what William Lane Craig would say. Well, if you have to start the universe, then you have to be outside of the universe and therefore not under the laws that
and
the universe
therefore
follows.
your name is God.
Yeah, so therefore, it has to be a first cause. There has to be a
I
being.
actually agree with the part except the God part. I think everything did come from outside the universe. It came from the other side of black holes.
Okay.
You see stuff going out of the universe through black holes. It came, but it was non-conscious. It's about science and physics and all that stuff, but nothing that was conscious.
So you're making all these claims. I'm just wondering how you know that. How do
told
you know that it
based-
was conscious or unconscious?
Based on everything I told you. Science, physics, observation, common
You've
sense,
observed the beginning of the universe?
living life. What was that?
I mean, you said science and observation when you're talking about how the universe started.
Well, you can, first of all, they got us back to the Big Bang. It's a question of before that. And you can see everything leaving the universe through black holes, so it seems obvious to me that something came in the opposite of a black hole.
It doesn't seem that
trapped.
obvious to me, though.
What's that?
It doesn't seem that obvious to me.
Oh, it seems obvious to me that small amount of something that caused everything came from somewhere. It was compacted and started the Big Bang.
Do things outside of the universe have to follow the rules of the universe?
Doesn't even make sense, really. Things outside the universe would still have to obey physics, but
Why?
physics could be different there.
Why?
It's a different situation.
Why do things outside the universe have to follow physics?
Because physics is natural.
But if it's outside, but natural implies it's in the universe, right? Like it's in what we can observe. Why does
I
something?
believe there could be natural things outside the universe, and you see things going into black holes
Right.
that are natural, and they're going out.
But
of
here's
the
my
universe.
point, though, right? If it's outside of the universe, then why does it have any obligation to follow anything inside our universe?
It doesn't. We're lucky that it did.
Well, so I think we might have a difference in opinion on this one, but I guess the point of this, what I was trying to bring to this exercise was, I think you're right in the sense that if we're talking about likelihood, probability, then yes, it is more likely than not that Yahweh, the Christian God, is not a thing that exists as we know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we can demonstrate human history, we can demonstrate the origin for a lot of these stories and where a lot of these places come from. And so therefore it doesn't make sense that the beginning of the universe and everything else has to be explained by the Christian mythos. I totally agree.
Any God. I don't limit it to Christianity.
But see, any God, though, I can't go with you that far, Glenn, and here's why. Because if we're talking about things that aren't even in our observation, that aren't even in our realm of thought or understanding, I can't make commentary on them. I can't say whether they're real or not real. Because
Well, if you
it's
want to-
outside of my realm of experience.
If you want to say God is science, nature, physics, or anything non-conscious, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But saying that some kind of conscious, complex being started anything, that's just pure fiction.
You think?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm
we
sure.
make complex things all the time, and I certainly didn't start at the beginning of the universe. But, I don't know.
I think so,
Things-
too.
Well, things go from simple to complex, and especially intelligence, and it would not start out that way. It would start out the way
Ooh,
it
he's
did.
making a lot of claims.
Yeah, I don't know.
Everything's natural. Everything.
Well, what's natural is that we're right at the end of the show here. We are a bit over time, but Glenn,
Yeah.
this was a great call. I'm glad you called in because
Thank you.
I appreciate that. That was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And
Thank you. It was taking it.
Yeah. I think it's good that we see, like, just to demonstrate to people, like, look, we can come to the same conclusions, but have completely different reasons as to why that we do.
But that's why we're talking about epistemology.
That's right.
It's how you know things.
That's what it's all about, baby. How we know things. I want that truth. Give it to me. And Glenn, thank you for giving me your truth today. Hope to hear from you again soon.
Nice talking to you, Glenn.
Well, we've been going over for over 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And what a great show.
was
Lots
fun.
of calls coming on. Jenna, thanks so much for coming in today. Where can
Thanks for
people find you
having
at? Yeah.
I am a co-host on the Atheist Experience, so I'm on there like once a month-ish right now. And then I also started my own show, Atheist Stasis, again on my channel, Jenna Belk. And you can find it by searching my name.
Hey,
And
check
we
out
have-
our thumbnail back here. This is from my artist who does all the work for our channel. I love this week's
I'm
artwork.
so impressed.
It is so good. She got you really good.
It looks just like me.
Yes. So I think the links to her stuff is in our description as well. So definitely check that out if you like
And
the
her
art for
name
this
is-
channel. And her name is also Jenna.
Her name is Jenna.
We're
Hi,
both
Jenna.
So yeah, thanks so much for doing that. I want to show the crew real quick as well. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, these are the guys that help make this show happen
Yay!
every single week. And also all the other shows here at the Atheist Community of Austin, of which Truth Wanted is a production of. If you like this show, you should definitely subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you get your podcasts from. There is a Facebook group you can join, and also you can follow me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. And if you feel so inclined to write into the show, you can do that as well. It is truth@atheist-community.org. Definitely send me an email. I read all those bad boys. We're talking about getting shirts, guys. We have shirts here. We want to get more. If you're interested in getting this shirt, send me an email and we can try to set something up, because the more people that are interested, the more shirts we'll make and get those out there. And if you are feeling generous tonight and you really like this show, you should consider giving on Patreon, patreon.com/truthwanted. All the money that goes to that Patreon goes straight to the ACA, straight to this show. Does not show up in my pocket. It's for the community and for making productions like this one even better than they already are. Jenna, do you have any words of wisdom to leave us as we wrap it up for tonight?
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
That's a joke. Shout outs again to the Truth Wanted live chat. That's here on YouTube. You guys are rocking my world. And the ACA Discord, which you can find me at as well. For those of you who are watching there, thanks so much. That about wraps it up for another great episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Objectively Dan. Remember, always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.